Veterans Day is only a week away, but it's our annual tradition to hold this ceremony during homecoming. That's because many of the Aztecs whose names are on this memorial, especially from World War II, were students who left campus willingly to serve their country and were never able to return. We honor them by keeping them in our hearts and in our thoughts, and we will remember them today as well by reading their names individually. Many of the names you will see on this monument are there due to the dedication and diligence of San Diego State Librarian Emeritus Robert Fikes, who for many years has researched and verified the stories of the veterans whose names are inscribed here. He continues those efforts to this day, and we thank him for his devotion to this endeavor. At this time, I invite you to stand as the SDSU Joint Color Guard presents the colors. Then please remain standing for the singing of our national anthem by musicians second class Chrissy Rojas from the Navy Band Southwest and the invocation from Brandon Harrison.
Detail, forward, forward, march. Detail, halt, left, haste, present, arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order! Arms! Left! Haste! Forward! March!
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brandon Harrison. I'm a proud graduate of SDSU, along with my brother. And both my grandfathers also served proudly in World War II in the Army and the Marines. So I'm grateful for my pride in the military and San Diego State University. So it's an honor today to give the invocation. Invocation is simply an opening prayer or blessing for our event today. So if you would join me and let's pray. God, I thank you so much for giving us this day to gather together to memorialize and celebrate the brave Aztecs who have given their life for our country, for our freedoms, and for our joys that we have. And I ask you, Lord, that you will give peace, joy, and so much solitude to all the families that are represented on this memorial, all the children, all the grandchildren, all the great-grandchildren, that they will know that their family member is still remembered and still honored to this day, that their life, their legacy, and their love was not in vain. And as we honor them today, I ask that this ceremony will celebrate and remember all that was done through the great and brave Aztecs who gave their life. And that as we honor them today, that we will be able to celebrate all that we have at San Diego State University, that we have in our hearts, our homes, and in this country to be grateful for. So thank you, Lord, for all that we have today, and ask that this will bless and remember the families that have truly given their lives for this country. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
What an incredible start to the ceremony. Please take your seats. Please join me in thanking the Joint Color Guard musicians, Second Class Rojas, and also Brandon Harris for those incredible words and start. Our first speaker this morning is a true champion of veterans programs and of our military-connected students here on campus. Please join me in warmly welcoming the president of San Diego State University, Adela De La Torre.
Thank you, Colonel. Good morning and welcome to everyone. I'm honored to be with you today on the 26th anniversary of this solemn ceremony. In a spirit of remembrance and gratitude, we honor the 239 members of our SDSU family who have been lost in military service. It is important that our university honors their sacrifice, not only because they were part of SDSU, not only because they were Aztecs, but also because SDSU is a reflection of our San Diego community, which is so heavily enriched by those who serve. San Diego is home to nearly 150,000 active duty military personnel and nearly 250,000 veterans. Collectively, they are an important influence on our city's identity, economy, character, culture, history. We are inextricably linked. At SDSU, we are proud that our community includes nearly 5,000 students with military connections, whether they are ROTC, active duty, veterans, or reservists, or the direct family members of those who served, because no one serves alone. When it comes to veterans, SDSU is committed to serving them just as they have served us. In 2009, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs launched the Vet Success on campus, and SDSU was one of the first 3 campuses to join. Since then, more than 100 schools have followed us into the program, which provides a full-time counselor to assist military-connected students and families with federal VA benefits and services. We celebrate our Women's Veteran Success Program, driving not just academic success, but also professional and personal development for our female students who have served. And our Troops to Engineer program, dedicated to helping our military graduates launch careers in a field that is so vital to San Diego's business landscape. Our support goes beyond our direct work with those who serve. SDSU's Military Ally Program drives awareness and support of veterans among our entire community of students, faculty, and staff. And our Troops to College Committee facilitates and supports veterans across our campus, departments, and functions. These are just a few of the many military-focused initiatives we've launched. I take great pride in SDSU being consistently ranked among the best schools in the nation for military and veteran programs and support services. And it is in the spirit of family that we turn our attention to the memorial behind me. It is our constant reminder and our tribute to the 239 members of the SDSU family whose lives were lost in service. To honor their legacies, let this memorial serve as a reminder of those we have lost and the importance of the global connections and diplomacy that we strive to create through higher education. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, President De La Torre. It is my pleasure now to welcome the president of the SDSU Alumni Board of Advisors, Risa Barron, to the podium.
Thank you, De La Torre. President De La Torre, my name is Risa Barron, and I'm honored to serve as the president of the San Diego State Board of Advisors. I'm proud to represent the San Diego State alumni here at the 26th Annual War Memorial Wreath-Laying ceremony. It means a great deal to me personally because of what I have come to understand since my days as a student here. I left the campus with a public administration and political science degree 5 years before this monument existed. And even if I stood here when I was a student, I'm not sure if I would have ever given it a second glance. I grew up never knowing anyone associated with the military. My family moved here to San Diego during my senior year in high school. So San Diego State was really my first place I met and became friends with students who have served in the military. I grew to understand that military service provided them an opportunity for education that they may have never had otherwise. That perspective was further clarified for me shortly after graduation when I went to go work as a contractor at NAB Coronado and NAS North Island. Meeting service members and hearing their stories helped me understand both the dedication and sacrifice many of them were willing to serve our country. A neighbor and friend of mine, whose name is Amanda, was working after high school at Best Buy during the 9/11 attacks, and she watched all of the screens at the store. She was moved by what was happening and enlisted in the Navy. I admire her selflessness and am grateful that she placed herself in harm's way to protect me and my family. Amanda received medical training in the service and eventually earned a nursing degree here at San Diego State University, Recently, she just completed her PhD program in nursing. That opportunity may never have come without her first making that commitment to serve. Service and sacrifice are why we're here today. The SDSU board maintains a deep, deep appreciation for the sacrifices of all military. Having served or currently serving, we consider it a privilege to maintain the annual tradition begun by the founders of this memorial. They established this monument for their friends and classmates who went off to war and never returned home. To them, the names on that memorial represent those whom they loved and dearly, dearly missed. Only a few of us here today may personally know someone whose name is etched on the monument, but most of us can appreciate what these fellow Aztecs stood for. I know I do. Which is why now, when I pass by, I take a moment to pause and reflect. I feel I owe that to them. We all do. The SDSU Alumni Board recognizes our responsibility to continue honoring these fallen service members with sincere gratitude. They made the ultimate sacrifice for all of us, and they will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Our speaker today from the SVO, Student Veterans Organization, is economics major and U.S. Navy veteran Avery Carmichael. Avery, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Avery Carmichael. As Vice President of the San Diego State University Student Veteran Organization, it is an honor to be here today representing current SDSU student veterans from all of the United States service branches. Like other students at the university, we veterans come here on our path to achieving our personal and professional goals. Unlike most other students, we have served our country in some way before arriving at this point. And for many of us, our service made our education possible. That's true for me. Growing up, I thought a lot about higher education, but with 4 brothers and 2 sisters and a single mom, I didn't think it was possible for me to go to college. At 18 years old, I decided to serve the country, take my GI Bill, and go to school. It was also a way I could help out my family, so I joined the Navy. I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't know anyone that was in the military at the time. I didn't have any family members that had served. But to me at the time, military service meant something selfless sacrifice, doing something bigger than myself. I definitely needed some direction because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at the time. The Navy recruiter said, well, there's a job on submarines. I thought, I don't really know what a submarine actually is, but that sounds great. Sure enough, I shipped off to serve on a fast attack nuclear submarine. I wanted to travel and see the world. The Navy said a fast attack would deploy often and take me to many places. Turns out it was true. Also true is that you're in a windowless vessel with 100 people, all-male crew, surfacing and submerging and going to the bottom of the ocean, floating around basically in a tin can. I have to say it was an interesting experience unlike anything I've ever done. I found in my time that when you're forced to work with people 12 hours a day, you build bonds with people, bonds that you might otherwise never associate with. You find those people becoming your close friends and even your brothers. I learned some things about myself. One of them came from getting my submarine warfare device, or insignia, that indicates that you're proficient in submarine warfare. To earn that, you have to master every system on board a submarine. It usually takes about a year or so to qualify. Understand that as a kid, I rarely studied. Things kind of came easy to me when I was in high school. But as soon as I got to the submarine, I realized it wasn't going to be that easy. I had to bury myself in manuals and schematics and end up qualifying submarine warfare in less than 6 months. When you get the pin, it's significant. What it means is that everyone in the crew can trust you with their life. They know they can sleep easy while you're on watch because I know what I can do in any scenario in case of an emergency. That was a powerful moment for me because it taught me that if I apply myself, then I can do anything. It showed me that knowledge is power. I felt like I had completely unlocked a different part of my mind, and that was astounding to me. But along with that knowledge comes a deeper sense of responsibility. It was my job to have the torpedoes and tomahawks ready at all times. I was the operator, and I knew that if would be, I would be the one to fire them. That is not a position that comes without some serious self-reflection. I had to ask myself, if I get the order, am I prepared to carry it out? Ultimately, I thought, this is what I signed up for. This is what I signed up to do. This is the job that I was trained for. There are people out there who are trusting me to do this. I was absolutely 100%. If I get the order, without a doubt, I would follow it for our country and for our people. So after 5 years in the Navy, here I am at San Diego State University, majoring economics with a minor in real estate. I plan to graduate next spring with a long-term goal of someday helping veterans buy houses. While I'm not exactly sure at this moment how that will come about, I know that if I will apply myself, I'll figure it out. There's a takeaway from my service, along with discipline and a deeply ingrained sense of responsibility. Did I ever have doubts? Did I ever question my choices? Sure, but there's one thing that pulls all the doubts to rest. After I got out of boot camp, I took a picture in my dress whites and I sent it home to my mom. And there was just this overwhelming response from my friends and family. People have my picture hanging up. People sent me messages showing support. Pictures of me in my uniform just hanging at my mom's house. It made me really proud to be doing what I was doing. It made me feel like all the things I had to do in the Navy were worth it. All the times I would get deployed overseas, all the days I spent underwater. Seeing my picture hanging at my mom's house made me glad that I could do all of it. In a small way, it provides me with some insight into how former students whose names are on this memorial might have viewed their service and their sacrifices. I know their friends and family were and are very proud of them, and I hope that they felt that same sense of pride. To those of you that are here today, your presence, this monument, and this ceremony reflect this kind of support this campus community offers student veterans. On behalf of all of us here at San Diego State University, thank you for making us feel respected, supported, and welcome here. To those names that are etched here in granite and whose lives were cut short, I offer our humble thanks. Your service and sacrifice we honor here today will always be remembered. Thank you.
I think on behalf of everybody, I can thank all of our speakers for those very personal and moving remarks, and they truly capture the special relationship that this campus and really this entire community has with our military and our veterans. Each year we sponsor a writing contest in conjunction with this event, with the top 3 entries receiving a cash prize. We had many outstanding submissions again this year, but 3 stood out and have been selected to be presented during today's ceremony. This morning, we are lucky to be joined by Drew Thomas, a senior majoring in business administration with emphasis in entrepreneurship, by Ashante Strange, a freshman majoring in biology, and by Riley Mazanovich, a freshman majoring in business administration. So I will ask now Drew, followed by Ashante, and then Riley to come forward and recite their entries.
Good morning, Aztecs. It is a wonderful honor to be here this morning. Actions have consequences. This is a phrase that many young students here come to learn very personally on campus. But many times, those students learn the hard way. I believe that every action, good or bad, has a lasting impact that we observe in the form of consequences. Students can relate to studying for a test and failing that hard exam. But for 239 Aztecs on the monolith behind me, their actions led them to pay a heavy consequence, the ultimate sacrifice for our country, our community, and our kin. 239 names are engraved on the War Memorial. Whether each student knows it or not, they are blessed with the lasting impact of the actions of our fallen Aztecs. I find that it can be challenging to think retrospectively as I'm bombarded with life, but seeing the War Memorial cared for and highlighted by the Student Veterans Organization helps bring that recognition front and center. The monument stands at attention day and night to remind students of our veterans' actions and the consequences that may result. As each student submits their final papers, passes that one challenging class, and eventually walks across that graduation stage, we must recognize that their actions were made possible as a consequence for the 239 veterans that are engraved behind me. Those veterans had duty, honor, and country at the very soul of each individual. They sacrificed their life for our great nation, and each alumni and student alike thanks them with the lasting consequences of our hard-earned actions. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. For the fallen. One too many times have tragedies not only struck our nation, but they have also torn apart generations. The sounds of their voices, the joy in their smiles, and the memories that they have created that go on for miles. The SDSU War Memorial is not just another piece of stone that is just meant to be left alone. The three-sided granite memorial commemorates and offers remembrance for the SDSU students who selflessly gave their lives. Walking past the one-of-a-kind memorial is a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to appreciate my family members who dedicated their lives for this country. For this story, it tells of those who are survivors and those who have gone on to pass but nonetheless will ever last. Memorials such as this are just one of hundreds that serve as a link between the past and the present. Memorials can be seen for loved ones to mourn, weep, and to find peace. They can also be viewed as a way for people to come together to remember the courage, the bravery, and the heart that every soul displayed. May the fallen know that they will now and forever have a place in our hearts and can finally rest. To the souls who will forever have gaping holes, to the hearts that feel as though they can never restart, know that we stand with you. Today, tomorrow, and the days that follow will serve as reminders that we are always here for the fallen. Thank you.
Thank you for having me today. This is called Keys. We try not to forget our keys, our wallets, our phones, but we do anyway. We try not to forget to text mom back and tell her that we're home, but we do anyway. We try not to forget all the important things in the world, but we do anyway. Maybe if we had a big visual representation of our keys, we wouldn't forget to grab them. Maybe if we had a big visual representation of mom's contact, we wouldn't forget to text. Maybe if we had a big visual representation of the most important things in the world, we wouldn't forget them. We try not to forget the little things, but always seem to forget the big things. The people who fight the hardest for you, they don't even know you, but they don't forget you. Maybe just maybe, we wouldn't forget the lives lost at war if we had a big visual representation of them. We build these memorials, and then we don't forget. You walk by, and you remember. You knew someone whose name is now engraved in stone, and then you never forget. I won't forget. My keys are in my left pocket. My phone is in my right pocket. My wallet is my bag. I texted Mom, and I lay this wreath, and I never forget. Thank you to all that have served. A special thank you to my father who served in the Marines, my uncle and my grandpa who served in the Navy, and my grandma and grandpa who also served in the Air Force. And to everyone that is here today, thank you for serving, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
You'll agree all our entries this year that were presented truly captured the importance of this memorial and the spirit of today's event. Let's please give them one more round of applause. At this time, it is my very great honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Henry James Bettinger is a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and an Aztec alumnus who earned a master's degree from the Fowler College of Business. He's also a Vietnam veteran and naval aviator with more than 28 years of active duty service prior to his retirement as a commander from the Navy in 1989. While flying off of the USS Constellation in November 1969, then Lieutenant J.G. Bettinger's plane was shot down over Laos, and he was captured and held prisoner by the North Vietnamese for nearly 3.5 years. Highly decorated for his heroic and distinguished service, Commander Bettinger's awards include the Legion of Merit with a Combat Valor Device, the Bronze Star with a Combat Valor Device, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, 2 Purple Hearts, the Air Medal, the Prisoner of War Medal, and many more. Jim is a husband and a father and comes from a family with a long record of service to the United States. Incredibly, he was not the first in his family to be held as a prisoner of war. 3 years ago, he added another title to his list of accomplishments as an author. In his book, Patriot, Prisoner, Survivor, An American Family at War, he shares the inspirational story of his remarkable life. We are extremely honored to have him back on campus. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker and fellow Aztec, Jim Bettinger.
Thank you, Marty. And good morning, Aztecs. When I was young, I had a lot of different experiences. Growing up north of Philadelphia and in the shadow of Naval Air Station, Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, I met people in the Navy that had served both in World War II and the Korean War, some real heroes. And so when I come to events like this today, I realize it's not about me, it's about all those people that became before me. In fact, several months ago, there were a group of veterans. We were all gathered downtown and sharing a few liquid refreshments. And I asked the question, I know why I joined the Navy, but why did you guys join the Navy and the Marine Corps? There were a lot of different answers. There's a lot of different reasons why people join the military services. Some for education, some because it's their only way to get out of the rut they're in, and some because they've read about history and realized that it's important to our nation. So I got thinking today about what I really could try to do to add something to the festivities. And having heard our speakers so far, my words will be little remembered, but their words will be. And I want to tell you, it's not an easy thing. But then I went back in time. I actually got inspired a couple weeks ago. It was on the 25th of October. Now that's not a date that we remember in history, but they do in Great Britain. St. Crispin's Day. And that was the day of a great battle back in 1416 in France, the Battle of Agincourt, where Henry V, the actual King of England, was leading the British forces, and they were outnumbered 6-1. For every Englishman, there was 6 Frenchmen. Fortunately, the Brits got to the field of battle fairly soon, and they took the high ground. And they had something that no other country in the world at the time had: longbows. And the longbows were breaking technology, a force multiplier. And so they took the highest ridgeline and they protected that, and they put their archers on that ridgeline. And when the French came in masses, row after row, column after column, they were absolutely shredded by this thunderstorm of arrows coming down from over half a mile away. The British won the battle. Along comes what sometimes referred to as Billy Shakespeare. And William Shakespeare wanted to write a play about William V. And in that play, in the third act, scene 3, is probably the greatest prep talk in the history of literature. I only want to share a few words. I'm not a mountebank. Excuse me if I don't get the English accent and the iambic pentameter just right. But you'll know it's heartfelt. And Crispin, shall we ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world? But we in it remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed that they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, while any hear who speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day. That inspired some other people. Move the clock ahead 500 years. The Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe outnumbering the Royal Air Force by 3-1 and flying Messerschmitts and Fokkers and other planes that were technologically more sophisticated and capable than the Spitfires. You would think that it was the end for England. It wasn't. Despite the odds, just like in Agincourt, the Royal Air Force succeeded in downing more of the enemy aircraft and winning the battle, so that the Nazis diminished their bombing rates and finally stopped. Winston Churchill went on the radio. He wanted to thank those people. One sentence we remember to this day. It goes like this: never in the annals of history, never was so much owed by so many to so few. The real sentence is only 11 words long, but it's much more powerful than 11 words. In 1961, on a cold, chilly, bright day, President John Kennedy spoke to the nation on live radio and TV after the oath of office. It was a stunning speech. I was chosen from my class at boarding school to go to the dean's office to actually listen to this speech live on his TV, black and white. Great big cabinet, little tiny screen. And what I remember when he got to the end of that speech were 2 sentences that we all know are John Kennedy. And the one sentence we hear again and again. But the second sentence seems to be left out. And I always wonder why. So today, I want to read the 2 sentences that we all will think of John Kennedy. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And my fellow citizens of the world, ask not. Now that really rang a bell with this high school student. And so when I went home in the summer and worked with my father, he had a tree and landscape business. I had the great privilege to serve with and get to be on a crew led by a master chief and a senior chief. Reg Moreland and Ed Grant will forever live in my memory. They've left us now. Of course, they're time has passed, but their memory continues. Reg Moreland was a first-class petty officer when World War II came, and he was a UDT guy. When we had to go into the north coast of Africa, who led the first team of UDT? Reg Moreland. When we were going to attack on the one side of Sicily, who led the first crew in? Reg Moreland. When we finally went into Italy, we wanted to trap the Nazis in the south of Italy, but the terrain and other things were such that, and the landing was hard. Reg Moreland was injured again, and so severely they took him to Great Britain, where he was recovering in the hospital. On a gray, foggy morning, a car rolled up. They were out on the patio finishing their coffee and croissants or whatever. And Reg's just got a hospital gown on and a Terry Cross robe. And they look out there and they said, "Oh, someone's in trouble. That must be the general's car, but the general's not in it." And some colonel got out of the car and walked in the front. 5 minutes later, over the PA system, "First class petty officer Moreland, report to the quarterdeck." "Oh my God, what have you done, Reg?" "I don't know. I've been sitting on my butt for 2 months here. It's about time they called me back to work." Well, they got him into sweatsuits, and they took the IV out of his arm. He got in the back seat of the car with the colonel, and off they drove. They got to headquarters. They came into this big, large receiving room, and there was a flag officer and an admiral and a Navy captain and an Air Force colonel, or Army Air Corps colonel. And Reg says, I can't, is this the headquarters? All of a sudden, the door opens up, and all these, he says, "I never saw so many generals and admirals in my life. There must have been 20 of them." And they all come out, and then this colonel reaches out, "We'll be with you in just a moment." The door opens up a minute later, and the colonel waves Reg to come forward. And there he is, bald, smile ear to ear, and just grinning. And he reaches out and shakes Reg's hand, General Eisenhower, the Allied commander of forces. They sat down, and he says, "I'm going to get right to business. We need some help on an amphibious invasion. Have you ever heard of Operation Overlord?" I said, "No, sir." He says, "Well, good. At least there's one secret that we can hold in this building." And Reg was helped in the planning of amphibious assaults on the shores of Normandy. And a week before the invasion was to start, one of the team leaders was hurt in a car accident, and it involved a motorcycle too. And so Reg was no longer advising, he took over the leadership of that role. 2 days before D-Day on Omaha Beach, he led 18 UDT troops ashore to set charges to help the way for the pathway that was the 3 pathways that they were going to do the LSTs from. On the day of the invasion, he was seriously injured again. And for his actions on Omaha Beach, Reg Moore was awarded the Navy Cross. He was a head recruiter for officers in the Philadelphia area when he worked for my father part-time. And when he started telling my stories in lunch hour, I want to tell you, it was victory at sea all over again, and I was all ears. So when it came time to join the military, it was no question in my mind, and no understanding other than one word: we fight for freedom. As a small boy growing up north of Philadelphia, I was taken many times to Independence Hall. And back then, the Liberty Bell sat right in the foyer. You came into the front, and there was a big meeting area, and the staircases going up to the second, third floor, and the rooms off to the sides. But right there in the middle of the foyer, with a red velvet curtain around it, was the Liberty Bell. And when I was 8 years old, I remember standing right in front of the bell, right in front of that crack. And I knew that that was a big crack because I reached out and I put my finger in the crack. I wondered, could that bell really have rung? Today, I know that bell rang. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And not just for us here at home, but for freedom-loving people the world over. That's why we're here today. That's why we're here to remember the many people, not just our Aztecs, they're important, but all the others that gave up their youth, their families, their lives, so that we could be here today enjoying the freedoms of this great nation. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you very much, Jim. At this time, we invite those who have brought floral tributes to please assemble in the back for the wreath-laying ceremony. We're about to begin a very special part of the ceremony. Our first wreath today is being presented by the SDSU alumni, and the presenter is Leanne Babcock. Our next presentation is from the Military and Veterans Programs. The presenter is Eliza East. And at this time, we'll begin a very special part of the ceremony as our Student Veteran Organization President, Aidan Daly, comes forward to lead the reading of the names of the fallen. At the conclusion of the reading, I'd ask you to please rise and render proper respect during the playing of taps by musician first class Ian Wheeler, Navy Band Southwest. Aidan.
Good morning. I'll begin reading the names. John E. Abbott, Raymond L. Adair, Herman H. Adelson, Robert M. Alber, James N. Amos, Martin F. Anderson, Thomas Ariano Jr., Roger W. Armbrister, Richard D. Aubert, Alan R. Bailey, Richard H. Bailey, William E. Baldwin, Joe M. Barkley, John W. Bassett, William C. Batchelor, John I. Beck, Claire V. Burdell, Jack N. Berg, J. Burdett Binkley, John W. Borum, Frank S. Brasted, Warren W. Brown, Forrest P. Brown, Maxton Brown, Richard W. Birch, Jack Burgess, Bruce Van Buskirk, John C. Butler, Raul Cayo, Wesley E. Carter, Gordon C. Chamberlain, Dennis R. Chamberlain, Richard Wilson Clark, Richard Winston Clark, Richard R. Clark, Robert W. Cochran, Thomas H. Cousins, Harold D. Curry, George R. Dahl, Thomas J. Davies, Edward B. Davis, Sherman Denny, Charles Dowell, Leslie W. Duvall, Wesley P. Eby, Howard J. Engel, Clifford G. Erdman, George R. Ewing, Adalbert Faulkner, Paul A. Fern, Don L. Finney, Gilbert O. Fitzel, Howard Flizrand, John J. Frazier, Claude Freakerson, Jack Frost, Robert M. Fuller, Lyman J. Gage, Joseph N. Gates, Clinton B. Gady, Al Goodell.
Good morning. William S. Goodchild, Robert Daniel Graham, Robert A. Griffith, Frank S. Gusty, Stanley D. Gu, George E. Hammond, Warren E. Hand, James C. Harden, William S. Hartshaw, Mason Harris, William Headington, Edward L. Emblem, Douglas A. Jacks, Kenneth L. Johnson, Paul W. Johnston, Charles P. Stone, Richard F. Cates, Arthur J. Kelly, James D. Coaster, Paul Kramer, Robert J. Landis, Wendell E. Langford, James G. Leonard, Alan F. Levine, Jack Madej, Howard E. McBride, Lyle G. McLaughlin, John B. McGrew, George R. Moore, Francis H. Moore, Ray E. Moore, Kenneth B. Moyer, Raymond W. Mueller, Russell Newberry, John R. Nolan, Frank D. Oliver, Daniel C. Owen, Royal A. Parks, James P. Parks, Sam J. Patella, Robert G. Peterson, A. Milky Phelps, Leo Poole, Greg Potter, Gilbert Kwan, Lynn E. Rogers, Kramer W. Roerig, George D. Rosado, Richard W. Roth, James Ruth, Francis R. Ryan, Alvin D. Sachs, William E. Sage, James Samuels, Joseph H. Savage, Richard J. Sawala, Edward L. Searle III, Maxwell B. Sherwood, Bill B. Shropshire, Faffel Simpson.
Fred Simpson, Paul Sierrathon, Thomas A. Skinner, Curry B. Smith, Robert H. Smith, Frederick B. Smith, Samuel C. Spade, John F. Stevenson, Victor R. Talbot, William H. Taylor, Ross A. Tenney, Clarence F. Terry, Jerry E. Thomas, Alan Thomas, Walter L. Technor, Parker Toden, Frank R. Verdusco, John H. Vaught, John T. Vaught, Peter L. Voles, Russell D. Wahlberg, Mark P. Wangness, Donald A. Weber, Lawrence J. Werner, Clarence White, Clea E. Williams, Robert James Williams, Maurice G. Wilson, Louis M. Wynn Jr., Charles M. Witt, William T. Todd, John H. Adams, Isaac S. Best, Byron H. Chase, Kenneth W. Cox, Robert Dowdy, Norman N. Freeman, Haram G. Glotfelder, Donald H. Hogg, Robert G. Harvey, Charles C. Kinney, William R. Lake, Donald W. McCormick, Charles R. Miller, Leroy A. Morgan Jr., Robert C. Nita, Thomas H. O'Brien, Lester F. Page, William R. Patton, Richard Phillips, George C. Pierce Jr., Willis Preston Smith, Herbert L. Tompkins, Robert Joseph Williams, Francis A. Barnes, Gerald D. Bell, Howard R. Bowling, William J. Bradshear, Ronald H. Brown, Michael T. Burns.
Good morning. Daniel L. Carrier, Rodney B. Carter, David M. Christian, Michael J. Howard, James P. Crook, Daryl W. Crum, Ronald L. Davidson, Richard A. Deldita, Thomas F. Durbin, Lauren E. Ingstrom, John L. Flynn, Robert M. Foley, Ralph E. Folks Jr., Peter W. Gilmore, Larry Himmer Henry, Hudson Jr., Dennis A. Jenkins, Stephen D. Joyner, Frederick M. Cash, Robert V. Kurlich, Kenneth J. Lamberton, James F. Lang, John J. Lindowski, Victor W. Liu, John P. Markin Jr., Jeffrey L. Martin, James M. Mitchell Jr., Ronald E. Morgan, Maurice C. Morrell, William C. Neistel, Charles L. Parker Jr., George W. Pearson Jr., Walter J. Peters, Terry W. Ratcliffe, Eugene L. Rathman, Gerald R. Roberts, Robert W. Romero, Paul W. Rose, David J. Rose, Gerald M. Rumble III, Richard L. Russell, Charles J. Scarf, John W. Tunnel, John A. Vo, William E. Walters, George W. Ward, Ulysses N. B. Wilkers Jr., Gene T. Wright, Matthew G. Axelson, Florence Bacon Cho, Jason W. Davis, Christian J. Heathcock, Oscar J. A. Jimenez, Andrew D. Lammett, Justin L. O'Donoghue, Jason J. Painter, and Thomas E. Retzer.
Thank you, everybody. Please take your seats. This concludes our ceremony. On behalf of the entire War Memorial Committee, thank you all for joining in this solemn observance. I want to especially acknowledge all our speakers today, but especially our keynote, Jim Bettiger, and also our students who were just simply outstanding. Thank you all. Thank you also to the outstanding musicians from Navy Band Southwest. I also would like to acknowledge the work of my fellow volunteer committee members for their time, commitment, and expertise as they work throughout the year to plan and execute this event. Thank you all once again for attending. I hope you will join us for a reception in the Joan and Art Barron Veterans Center located just around the corner from the Aztec Student Union. Thank you very much.